Hello guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. The Saint of War, Tensura x DxD, by Kischur Chapter 4. Gabriel Pav. It has been 2 years since my baby boy has went into the Heavens Library, and many things has happened ever since then. For one, and the most celebrated day of heaven, ever since the First Mythological World War, was the day that Raziel acquired his own grace, and was formally recorded as a grace user in heaven's history as the M equals the mind. It was a celebrated day, especially with Raziel's grace being quite a fitting grace for himself as well, and add in the fact that he is in the best library in the entire world also benefited him and his grace as well. Other than that, many things has happened throughout the world that cause us in heaven to react to it, in a way that caused me great pain at the potential conflict that would happen in the future. The political scene of the supernatural world is getting more and more intense and aggressive, to the point that there have been rumors that there was even multiple assassinations between two parties of other factions, causing more and more things for us in heaven to react to. For one, much like we have anticipated, the various pantheons, factions that are near us, are all gearing up for the war and are raising armies, causing us to raise up our defenses for the first time since the civil war with the devils and fallen factions. And as for the Vatican City, we have ordered the church and its various priests and nuns throughout the world to be ready for the war, with us ordering the Pope and the 7 corp leaders to be for war at any moment at any time as well. And as for the normal humans that just view God and us angels as a sort of religion and nothing more, so the ordinary folk, we haven't ordered them, since it is a formal agreement between all pantheons and factions to not mess with the ordinary folk, if they're just doing is to spread their religion. Which is an agreement that I was glad that many has agreed upon, causing said things to become an impossibility because of the formal agreement that was signed all those years ago. Because of this, people that aren't associated with the supernatural wouldn't be a victim of said wars, and with the rising tension, I'm afraid that the Third Mythological World War is upon us once again. It seems that I couldn't prevent the war. I am truly a failure of a diplomat. I thought to myself, since from the very start I have been working non-stop for 100 or so years to prevent this war from happening. With me going to various pantheons and factions to offer non-aggression pacts or alliances with other pantheons and factions, and graded some of them did accepted the non-aggression pact and some even moved into an alliance as well, with the most notable being the Norse pantheon, the 5 faction and Arthurian mythology being our only allies of this potential war. I have also reached out for the Celtic pantheon, but it seems that they want this war to happen to spread their faith and territory way past their island of Ireland and into Great Britain and the rest of the European countries. The same goes for the Greek pantheon, with them wanting to dominate the European continent and wanting to beat us for an old grudge that they have towards us, so it was very much obvious that they would have declined it. Egyptians as well, with them having a grudge against us because of Moses stealing many of their followers and weakening the faith of humanity towards the Egyptian gods, and with Solomon as well, with him also acquiring a lot of land that belonged to the Egyptians and spreading Catholic's religion as well throughout Egypt as well, which also dampened the Egyptian gods from further spreading their faith as a result of his doings. Slavic pantheon also declined the non-aggression pact and alliance as well, with them wanting to spread their mythology territory further and consumed all of European continent as well. Of course, the only negative thing that I do think about with them, is that they have a grudge against the Greek pantheon for some reason as well, with them wanting to kill or even destroy the pantheon because of it. They have also expressed wants to fight the Hindus, but considering the powerhouses and monsters that are living in the Hindu pantheon, that in itself is an impossibility of them winning that war. I'm pretty sure that the only pantheon that is strong enough to wage war with the Hindu pantheon no longer exists, the prime of the heaven faction before anyone's betrayal and with father still being alive, that version of heaven might be able to win. The Chinese faction also has the potential to win against the Hindus, but considering their decline of power because of their civil war with the Monkey King and their lost in the Second Mythological War with Hindus and the pincer attack that the Shintos has done as well, caused them to lose even more power. I thought back to the glory days of the Heaven faction, back when it was called Heaven's Pantheon, in which it is generally agreed upon, even by outsiders, to be the peak pantheon, what a pantheon can truly do and become, and what they could achieve in the grand scale of things. That was the day that heaven reigned as the strongest there is. But with both Lucifer and his companions rebelling and becoming the devil faction, and Azazel and his companions rebelling and becoming the fallen faction. Heaven has lost a lot of its power, but is still seen as a top-tier faction because of the things that was left behind, especially as the archangels, which are strong enough to be a threat as big as a major god, especially with our experience in war and combat being one of the best there is as well. And as for the devil and fallen faction, they are seen as top tier, with the fallen being seen as the weakest one of the three, with the devil faction being seen as our rival in the top spot. But we need more as well, I said to myself, since even for me, despite our great power, even I see cracks forming, especially with the church and exorcist, but we can't really do anything, because we're far too busy in actually running Father's holy system and sacred gear system simultaneously. Gab, we need to talk. Hearing the voice of Raziel, I then turned around to look at him fully. Raziel is a handsome young man with beautiful flowing silver hair and red eyes. His body is quite lean with the perfect amount of muscles in there. Other than that, his most striking feature is his pure white silver wings and halo on top of his head, with his usual outfit being his white shirt, jeans and jacket. Raziel, the angel that acquired the grace F equals the flow, and out of any one of the current angels, or even in all of history, Raziel can be said to have the most potential out of every angel, with him being slated to surpass Michael in the next decade or so. How unfortunate! If only he was old enough to participate in either the First or Second World War, he could have already surpassed the throne stage and entered the cherub stage of power, especially with his grace. Even by the standards of graces, flow is seen as one of the strongest, if not the strongest, because of its ability to manipulate the flow of energy, be it supernatural or natural. Because of that, he has been classified and nicknamed the power of God with this ability. Sister, your son, Seal, has been showing signs of leaving the library. Hearing that, I couldn't but smile happily at that information, but I then stopped and then looked at Raziel and narrowed my eyes at him. Why are you telling me this? I wanted to know why. Considering Raziel's personality and motives, I know for a fact that he doesn't mean harm, but again, because of his motivation, he might do something that I'm against. To this Raziel just sighed at my words and then looked at the window besides, and then looked down upon the lower layers. I want Seal to become a part of the Exorcist as a fighting force, with his talent and fighting skills that he has shown 2 years ago, and with the library training him and with him acquiring a grace, it would be perfect, with him being able to inspire the Exorcist to become stronger and hopefully be able to survive this third mythological war. Hearing his words, I couldn't say anything, and it's not because I agree with his decision, but because I couldn't help but be saddened at his change of personality. Raziel, being the youngest of the archangels, is someone that is strongly motivated in making the Heaven faction to be as strong and stable as possible, with him viewing angels and exorcist as pawns in a game of chess to strengthen and stabilize the faction. Because of this actions, he is generally viewed as someone that wants to acquire the position of the leader of the angels itself, and be crowned the strongest angel, because of his arrogance and his ego. But in truth, he isn't like that. He genuinely loves the faction and every member in it, with him doing the things he does, not because he wants to be recognized or be the leader. He is very much satisfied in where he is at in the grand scale of the world. But because of his immense love for the faction, it caused him to be viewed as a potential traitor and throne grabber, and luckily every one of the angels knows of his true personality, and completely trust him because of it. Raziel, you are such a gentle boy that you want to make sure everything is safe and sound. But that mentality is something that would get you killed and cause your whole team to die, I thought, since despite his great power and ability to adapt to situations, he is a gentle person, with him not even participating in a single war in his life. Sure, he has fought other races to the death before as well and won and gotten stronger, but fighting groups of enemies is far too different in fighting in a war, and his current mentality is his greatest weakness and the reason why he isn't the commander of Heaven's armies. He is far too gentle. In a war, one needs to realize that one would need to sacrifice something to survive, and to sacrifice many things to win said war. That was the mentality that the current commander of Heaven's armies, Sandalphon, goes by, and why he is trusted throughout heaven and feared by the other factions and pantheons as a general. Raziel is only useful in peacetime, with him being able to strengthen members and stabilizing the faction, but outside of peacetime, he can't trust it in leadership positions, with him more so going along the warrior route rather than a commander or a strategies. I would like that decision to be Ciel's own, and if he wants to be a part of the Exorcist, then I shall allow it, and if not, then no further discussion shall be made of this matter and everything shall be forgotten, I said, And to further my decision in his head, I decided to realize a bit of my power as well. Since even if he's said to be able to surpass the power of Michael, that is just potential, not the current him, and he may be a powerful throne-class angel, but he isn't on the same league as me and the others that has reached the max level of a throne class and just needs moments to acquire the ability to evolve and become cherub. Very well, it shall be his decision to make then. With those words, he then walked off to somewhere, causing me to sigh and then looked down at the lower layers as well, and saw the numerous angels that was training and preparing defenses for the upcoming war that was about to come. Michael, Raziel and Sandalphon was currently in the war room, preparing for possible strategies to fight and defeat the possible pantheons and factions that would come after them. Sandalphon has ebony hair, neatly trimmed and stylishly short, accentuated his aura of vitality. A palpable intensity emanated from him, as if he held the weight of countless experiences within his being. His eyes, devoid of emotion yet piercingly sharp, seemed to possess an uncanny ability to perceive the deepest truths, with him currently wearing a white military uniform. The three archangels of heaven sat in the war room. With that, Sandalphon then activated a device that projected the entire globe, causing all three of them to look upon it. Much like we anticipated, the Greeks has been preparing for this war for more than half a millennia, with them being the one who are the main cause for this political tension in the whole world right now. Sandalphon reported to the two, who only nodded at that information. Sandalphon, who is the commander-in-chief of Heaven's armies, is also the head of the information department as well, with his position being hidden, because of his position in it being quite important, which has worked largely successfully, with the only ones who knew of his position being the fallen angels themselves. The leader of the fallen angels, Azazel, one of the greatest minds and inventors of the supernatural world, and one of the best individuals that could create information networked, and is even considered the best in the world, acknowledges that Sandalphon surpassed him in every single way possible, with him coming to learn all of his skills to Sandalphon. Sandalphon's ability to create information networks that is so well hidden and the ability to acquire top quality and quantity information the fastest, is one of the many reasons why Heaven is still considered a top faction, because of this man's tactics and information gathering skills being the greatest in history. How many soldiers in their army, and how many other factions and pantheons that are planning on fighting us? Michael asked, with him looking at the globe in complete concentration. With that, multiple glowing dots then appeared over the map, with the globe of the underworld also appearing as well with their own sets of dots as well. There are currently 7 possible forces that are going towards us right now, and that is, the Greeks, Celtic, Slavic, Egyptians, devils, fallen, vampires, with them being the ones that could have a reason to engage us in this war. As for the number of troops, the Greeks has about 2.3 million soldiers, Celtic having about 1.2 million, Slavic having 700k, Egyptians having 10 million, devils having 15 million, fallen having 50 million and the vampires having 250k. Hearing the numbers, the other two only sighed depressively at the large amount of forces that could potentially go their way as well, which they have also started to fear would also breach and destroy their defenses as well with those numbers as well. To this Raziel could only rub her head at the large amounts of troops of the enemy forced. No matter what strategy that I can come up with, Heaven would be destroyed in all of them. Father, why? Why does the fallen has to fuck like rabbits so much? Raziel complained to her deceased father, with the other two not even commenting on her speech, since they understood her pain. In truth, the only ones that could truly pose a threat to them is without a doubt the fallen angels, not because of their quality of soldiers, but their quantity of soldiers, since no matter how others view them. The leaders of the fallen angel faction, Grigory, are one of the best strategists and commanders out there, with all of them being experienced veterans and one of the best generals and strategists as well, and with them having a lot of soldiers, meaning they have a lot of men to waste as well to do their strategies, and with them once being members of Heaven as well, they obviously also knew of Heaven's strengths and weaknesses as well. We obviously need to focus most of our forces in defense because of this fact, since the potential of them attacking together or one after the another is something we need to take into account as well. Raziel proposed with an simple look, but then dropped it and replaced it with a serious look. Is something that they would think, we need to do something that would be completely unprecedented, something that they wouldn't be able to expect and react to. How? With our limited forces, we can't go on an offensive like the other factions. Because of our limited race, we are in a decline in population. With us just numbering over 5 million angels in total. And add in every exorcist being called forth into Vatican City as well. We have an additional 700 plus K soldiers as well, and with adding in the equipment that we have that supply them as well, then the exorcist all of them should have twice their normal capabilities, so 1.4 million strong as a minimum, Michael commented, causing Raziel to sigh frustrated on their low numbers, while Sandalphon only focused on the information that he was getting and then organizing them so that he could know what to do. The only ones that are going to be useful in fighting the major players of each faction is the Pope. The 7 corps commanders and their lieutenants, so about 22 of the church members would be useful on fighting the top tiers of each faction, Sandalphon commented as well. The Pope is the strongest user of holy magic for the humans, while the 7 corps commanders being the 7 strongest exorcist, with them having 2 lieutenants each as well, so 22 members strong, with the weakest of the lieutenants being an upper high class, with said person needing to become an enlightened to break his limits and go past the high class rank. To this thought, Sandalphon could only give Raziel a look of gratitude, because of the work of her department, they were able to complete the training cabins and was able to raise the level of their forces immensely, especially in terms of not just power, but also technique as well, cause both the exorcist and angels to become even more powerful than before. The only issue now, is that we don't have enough training cabins to match the demand for them, Sandalphon sadly thought of reality. Because of the heavens slowly dwindling resources because of their preparation for the war. With them buying and making their own food and water, it caused the delay for the production of the training cabins. Because of that, there are only about 100 or so training cabins. We need to somehow increase production, but we can't use too much resources on the training cabins, since we also need food and supplies as well. To this Sandalphon could only sigh in disappointment at himself that he couldn't get everything ready on time. What we need is a single powerful piece to pierce the expectations of our enemies. In order for us to survive this war, we cannot be defensive for this one. Because of our dwindling forces and the amount of enemies that could potentially attack us. And with 2 of them being confirmed, Greek-Egyptian, with their forces outnumbering our own. And maybe even quality as well, with there being quite a lot of demigods and spirits working for them, not just humans, there was even reported monsters as well. Because of that, now more than ever, we need a powerful secret weapon to turn the tides towards us now, more than ever. Sandalphon words only increased the stress of Michael, since the more and more words he hear, the more and more hopeless the situation feels like. But for the Archangel Raziel, she didn't felt despair, but more like anger, with her slamming down her right hand to the table, shattering it and the floor below it as well due to her power. Are you claiming on using seal in this war? Sandalphon. Raziel asked her dear younger brother, while also slowly releasing more and more of her power towards Sandalphon, who only looked back towards her with the same intensity in his eyes. That's right. Rumble. Right after his words, Raziel immediately released her magical power to the atmosphere, which was enough to darken the clouds and cause rainfall towards the human world because of her power being enough to affect the weather. What did you say? Quote. With that, Raziel immediately fired off multiple beams of holy energy towards Sandalphon, who dodged it by ducking and then immediately retaliated with him drawing his gun to fire towards Raziel as well. Smash. Asterisk. Raziel was immediately thrown towards the wall, caving it, with the gun in Sandalphon's hand being blown away and landing towards the wall and caving it in as well. To this the 2 then turned towards the third party, which is Michael, who upon seeing the 2 attacked each other, decided to intervene here and now. You 2 stopped fighting, Michael said in a tone full of authority, causing the 2 of them to shiver, since the power that Michael was releasing was enormous. It was to the point that it completely surpassed the throne stage and is now entering the cherub stage, with some of his skin even showing cracks, showcasing his near evolution. What do you mean stopped fighting? This bastard was planning on using seal as weapon. Raziel, who was able to recover from her fear and surprised, immediately yelled out her reason as for why she opposed Sandalphon, who only looked down to the ground, fully accepting her accusation. Quote. All of your words towards me are true. I do want to use seal as a weapon of sorts for the other factions and pantheons, but you have saw his potential 2 years ago, and you have seen what he was able to do in just a week of training and even evolved into an enlightened stage as a result, so what do you think would change? How much do you think he would have improved in this 2 years of training in Heaven's library? And add in the fact that he has acquired a grace himself. I wouldn't be surprised if he has reached the top tiers of enlightened stage or has reached the saint stage, and we don't even need to start with technique and skill. I'm sure he would have reached even greater skill now, when he is older. Sandalphon explained his reasonings towards Raziel, who only glared harder on him, causing Michael to increase his power to not let another to occur between the two. Enough of this. We do not control the life of Seal Tempest. The decision of him either fighting in this war would be his and his alone, so there shall be no more discussion of whether or not Seal would become an exorcist or not. He said the last word with seriousness and heaviness that caused the two to access his words. To this Michael just sigh in relief that the conflict has temporarily ceased, and with that he then released his power over them and then continued the meeting. Because of their earlier scuffle, Raziel refused to look at him, which was fine to Sandalphon, since she does also occasionally answer and give her opinion over the matter as well, so he was fine with it. Michael, seeing the tension, could only look hopeful that nothing bad would happen to worsen the two's relationship, since he knew that conflict from within now would be disastrous. Asgard, the home of the Aesir gods, and the home of the chief of the Norse pantheon, Odin Borson, and right now in the war room of Asgard, sat the main gods of Norse myth. Odin Borson, the chief and leader of the Norse, with him being the god of wisdom, knowledge, war and magic, with him being known throughout the world as the All-Father, and with Gingnir on his hand, he is a type of god that wouldn't be messed with in battle. Thor Odinson, the strongest warrior of the Norse pantheon, with him being touted as the strongest god of the Norse myths, and the god of thunder, lightning, medicine, strength, power and war, and with him having the legendary Mjolnir, there is a reason why he is said to be the second strongest thunder god in the world. Loki, the trickster god of the Norse pantheon, with him being the god of trickery, deceit, animals and fire, with him being the blood brother of Odin, and the one who taught the chief god how to trick others as well. Tyr, the commander and chief of all Norse armies, with him being the god of war, justice, bravery, discipline and lawfulness. He is also called as the one-handed god of war and the god of sacrifice, with him losing his right hand to Fenrir Wolf. Brunhilde, the leader of the Valkyries and the strongest soldier of the Norse, with her combat skills being high enough to even fight against the god Thor in battle, and is recognized as the strongest female in the Norse pantheon. This 5 warriors of the Norse realms has gathered here today for the strategy for the upcoming war, and with them being tied down to Viking tradition itself, all of Aesir gods, and the warriors of Asgard are ready to fight and die in this war. What has the other realms' decision for this war? Odin asked his council, who only looked at both Brunhilde and Loki, with the two standing up from their chairs to speak, with the first being Loki. Helheim has agreed with the war, and has asked us for an increase in trade by about 50%. Muspelheim has agreed as well, with them requesting for an increase in territory and a fight with Thor once more, and finally Niflheim, the realm that I rule over, I only asked for an increase of trade as well by about 40%. Loki finished, causing Odin to close his eyes and then said his decision. All of them shall be accepted. Make a list of what Helheim wants to increase, for we can't just increase everything after all. The same goes for you as well, Loki. Thank you all, Father. With that, Loki then gave his thanks and then sat down on his chair and then looked towards the other messenger. Vanaheim has accepted the proposal for the war, with them wanting to increase their side of the profit margins even further. Jotunheim desires to fight the most powerful armies of the enemy, with them not wanting to fight an army that is far too below their standard. Alfheim wants to be allowed to have greater presence in the Council of Heads, and Svartalheim wants to increase trade as well by about 200%. Brunhilde reported to Odin, who just chuckled at the wants for Alfheim. Very well then, all of them shall be approved as well, especially Jotunheim. Their proposal of wanting to fight armies of their criteria shall be met, and as for Svartalheim, the increased shall be 300%. But in exchange, we want them to increase the production of equipment by about 30%. Odin ordered, with Brunhilde nodding as well and then seating back down to her chair. So Tyr, would that be enough of a fighting force to fight off Slavic myth? Odin continued on to his most trusted advisor in this war. Tyr, hearing the All-Father talking to him, immediately replied as well. It would be difficult. We must also consider the quality of our troops and theirs as well. so we can't truly discuss if we would win outright with this number of troops. Then there's also wildcards as well, and a possible hidden weapon as well. This two things could make or break our war front with the Slavics, Tyr commented. To this, Thor just scoffed, gaining the rest of them to look at him. Slavics are obviously going towards the Greeks to try to kill Zeus because of what he has done. For that reason we don't to worry about them as much. With them being more concentrated on the Greeks, we can very well rush in and take as much land as possible from the Slavics. And as for the Heaven, Phi and Arthurian factions, they are all far too righteous for them to destroy the alliance that we have built up over the years, and as gods of the Norse realm, we shall obviously keep that agreement as well. Thor then turned towards Odin, but the main problem here would be Heaven. To this Odin just nodded at his words, glad of his son's attitude. Thor may be a battle maniac that would go around the world to challenge anyone for a fight just for the hell of it, but that doesn't mean he would treat a war like any other battle he partakes in. Since he views a war as something could be lost, it's the reason why he hates war as much as his father, since at his words, a battle happened because of me, and I could take a loss or two, since it's the consequences of my actions that lead me to that loss. But a war is different. In losing a battle in a war, lives can be lost, and the consequences is no longer mine, but the entire pantheon's. Thor is right. Our problem is Heaven. Because of the alliance we have made with Heaven, we are also responsible in giving them reinforcements in the time that they need it, and with them being in a pincer attacked by the Greeks and Egyptians, but also fallen and devils as well, we obviously need to offer reinforcements for them, but who? Odin wondered. In truth, despite being a god of war, he hates wars, or more like he would do anything to prevent a war. It's the sole reason why the Norse pantheon doesn't have a falling out or a civil war despite there existing about 9 factions in said pantheon. Since Odin has been trying to prevent civil war and promote peace and harmony with each group, causing him to be quite like as a leader and be more so known as a god of wisdom instead of war. Tyr hearing then turned towards Thor. Thor, could you help Heaven in their time of need? Since with you, we wouldn't need to send in a far large of a force with you in there. Tyr decided to reason with Thor, who only shook his head. I can't, with me being there. Other factions, pantheons might attack the Norse pantheon while I'm away. And it's not because I'm underestimating you all, but it's a fact that other forces in the supernatural would try to invade and mess with the Norse with me not being around as well, since if we do also decide for me to be reinforcement, we need to secure all fronts as well for possible invasion from other groups. Thor may be a fool and a battle maniac, but when it comes to war, he would drop anything related to battle and would take anything to secure his home from possible enemies. To this the others could only nod at his words as well. And with nothing left to do, Loki, who has been watching this discussion, decided to stand up, which drew the attention of the others in the room. We will not be able to achieve anything in this manner. The best we can do is to train our soldiers and acquire more equipment for the upcoming war. Let's have a strategy meeting next month. With that we would have at least more information, and maybe even acquire a letter from Heaven for a request for assistance as well. Hearing Loki's proposal, none of them objected to it, since they knew that if there is no new information that they would acquire, there would be nothing that they would be able to do as well. The best thing that they could do now is to wait it out and acquire new information. With that Odin just stood up and then finished the meeting. This meeting is over. Much like Loki said, let's meet up once more in this room next month. With that all of them then returned back to their post, readying themselves for the upcoming war that would surpass all wars prior to it as well. In Heaven's library, currently the space was currently filled in a golden and a rainbow tint aura all over the space. To a creature that is used to the night or of demonic in nature, if they ever stepped in this room, just the fact it is covered in this aura alone would kill any high-class devil out there. And in this library, Seal was currently in a mediating stance, with him using the newly improved method that he created and improved up with mind, and right now, he could only sigh, I no longer have anything to learn. So might as well leave, Seal said to himself, and with that then stood up and then flared his energy to the max. I'm mid-upper archangel level now, and my physical capabilities are all on peak ultimate class, and as for my martial rank, with that he then smoothly moved his finger to the side, causing a massive disturbance in the surrounding energy and then swiftly destroyed slice off the floor, peak Grandmaster. With that Seal then turned towards the door to leave the library, noting that there is no more things that could help him improve. or at least things he could access in this library. Stage 6 martial arts isn't available for me to acquire now. I need to undergo a body reconstruction in order to acquire access to Stage 6 feat, Seal thought sadly, since despite his ability to learn Stage 6 martial arts, it seems that the library wouldn't allow him to learn it. With that, Seal then left the library. Hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond. Outside of the library stood Gabriel, who wanted to be the first one to see Seal, and be able to talk to him about his future, since she knew, because of the war, they would ask Seal to join with the exorcist, and with how nice and good of a child he is, he would without a doubt accept it, because of the sheer debt he would feel towards them. And about all, she wants to be the first one to be seen by Seal. With that, the door then lit up, causing her to look at it expectantly, and just like she showed, when the door fully opened, a much older Seal exited the door, causing her to run up towards him to hug, which was replicated by Seal as well. Seal, it has been so long. How is it? Your experience in the library? She asked quite a few things from him, with her wanting to know more and more about his experience in it. To this Seal just smiled and then buried himself further into her hug. It was quite an experience, but I acquired quite a lot as well in the library. Seal, welcome back. With that, the two mother-son duo then turned towards where the sound came from and saw the other archangels coming their way, with Raziel being the one who called out to Seal, causing said boy to let go of his mother to greet the others. Raziel, it has been quite a while. Seal greeted Raziel, who only nodded and then hugged him, which he also replicated as well. Seal, how has your 2-year training session been? Good, bad? Raziel questioned him, wanting his feedback about the library as well. To this, Seal only looked at the door and answered. There's nothing I could say that would be bad. But if I were to give it a single criticism, it would be good for it to be able to house more individuals than just a single individual. Hearing his words, the others could only sigh and nod at his words, also wanting to do it, but couldn't possibly do it, for fear of actually breaking it. Well, without father, we can't truly upgrade it, since it would be far too risky and dangerous, since only he knew the knowledge of how the library works. Metatron answered his student, who only nodded at his words, since he too also tried to acquire the knowledge on how the library works, but couldn't find it at all, like the knowledge only existed in God's mind. Well, too bad, Seal said while leaving Raziel's embrace, who only pouted at the leaving boy. Uriel then walked up towards Seal and then offered him a wooden sword, so wanna practice. To this, Seal only looked at the wooden sword, and before he could say anything though, Gabriel smacked his head, smashing his head to the ground. Idiot. Seal has be sure. Seal, what did you say? Sure. I fight you, Uriel. In the training area of heaven, which is now filled to the brim with angels and exorcists, wanting to see the first human to enter heaven's library, with many wanting to see him fight for the first time, especially the exorcist, who has been hearing the boy's achievements and could only look on in jealousy on how the angels pamper the child. HMPH. That child is an idiot. Despite being said to be a genius, why would he use the Holy Knight sword too? An exorcist thought, while looking at the child, with multiple weak points in his stances, while using a single-handed sword. Idiot. If he truly wants to fight Uriel, one of the greatest swordsmen in history, one would need to use Holy Knight sword one instead. The exorcist criticized the boy. The swordsmanship of exorcist has 3 forms: one-handed sword arts, two-handed sword arts, and sword and shield. And of course, as an experienced exorcist, he obviously know it many styles of the church, with the basic knight sword too, being a swordsmanship that focused on strength and speed, rather than defense. It's because of that, no normal exorcist would actually used it, since as humans, even when evolved into an enlightened, is still within human limitations and weaknesses, so theoretically, even if a human were to be placed in the same rank as high class, they would still be weaker than their supernatural counterpart. It's because of that, the most famous, or most widespread sword style is that of a sword and shield, or a combination of a gunslinger and swordsman. For her to try to use a single-hand sword style, he is quite out of his mind. That was the general consensus of the exorcist in this training area. And in truth, their thoughts would have been right if it was projected into another human that is trying to do the same thing as Seal, but the problem is that Seal is no longer a human, for he has become something that could be said to be the closest thing to that of Adam and Eve. High human. Seal. How did you become a high human? The archangels thought, since from the very beginning, they thought that something changed within him, like an evolution of sorts. Because of this, they thought that Seal has reached saint stage, but when they investigated it even further, and just now, they were able to figure it out, he became a high human, or more specially, an enlightened high human. Could it be that Seal was able to awaken his high human genes in the library? But even Cain and Abel couldn't become a high human and was born as an ordinary human, so how come? How come Seal awakened it, despite being so far down the line of evolution? Gabriel thought, trying to understand what truly happened to Seal. A high human, are called by the supernatural world true humanity, is the true form of humanity, with there being only two in number, with them being Adam and Eve. In truth, to the supernatural they were simply relieved that there was only two high humans, because of how powerful they were. High humans have high lifespans, with them being able to live for millennia, not needing sustenance at all, having high affinity to combat and magic, and with them being high beauty, they were a perfect race, without any fault whatsoever. Because of this, the old gods of that time killed both Adam and Eve out of jealousy of their features and abilities. Of course, heaven at that time was powerful enough to fight off multiple pantheons at once, with them deciding to fight off every pantheon that participated in the killing of Adam and Eve. But now, there is now another high human. Seal Tempest is the third enlightened high human. We need to hide this fact from the rest of the supernatural world. We need to hide this information as much as possible, before the start of the war. Michael thought, with him looking at Sandalphon, who only nodded and then left the area to monitor every angel in the training area to monitor, and then to strengthen their information network. Seal. Let's do this. Let me find how much you improved. Uriel yelled out to Seal with him brandishing his sword to Seal, and then getting in a stance. Seal, seeing this, also went into a stance. My name is Seal Tempest, son of Gabriel Tempest. Quote. My name is Uriel, a creation of the God of the Bible. Quote. With the declaration set, Raziel then raised his hand to start the battle, with the declaration set. Match. 3, 2, 1, go. Quote. With that Uriel then slashed his sword towards Seal, to create an sword slashed filled with aura. To this Seal just coated his sword in aura and broke the slashed. Is that the best you can do? Uriel. Seal taunted Uriel, who only smiled at his taunt. If you want to taunt someone, do better than that. Uriel then ran towards Seal, while also sending out slashes towards Seal. Then how do you taunt? From the books said, is to act superior or underestimate your opponent's skills. Seal voiced out in curiosity, while dodging the slashes sent towards him and then clashed together with Uriel. Michael, I will be going towards the library to destroy those book that is teaching bad thing to my baby boy. Opening curly bracket ... Sure Gabriel, I give you permission. Well, to taunt one's opponents, is to fight them, surpass them in skill and undermine their progress. Uriel answered. With that the two then back away, with Uriel kept on pushing the frontal attacks, with him sending in various slashes and thrust, which was skillfully being switched without any form of lag at all. Seal has also shown immense improvements as well, on not just physical front, but also technical front as well, with him being able to equal Uriel in the fight, despite the Angels' desperate attempts of pushing the offensive and to make it so that Seal would give up on pure strength alone. But as the battle continued, more and more the spectators was surprised, because of his young age, they were all sure that Seal would lost in his fight with Uriel because of Uriel's superior physical capabilities, which are in mid-upper archangel range. Holy crap. He's actually that skilled. The same exorcist that was underestimating the boy couldn't help but clenched his fist in pure jealousy that his assessment of the boy was utterly wrong. If only I was given the same special treatment, then I too would also reach the same level or even surpassed him. Single quote. For Seal to have improved this much. You truly are like that of a raging storm. Seal, Michael thought, while looking at the battle between human and archangel. Raziel, who was overseeing the battle, couldn't help but be in shock at what was happening before him. Seal isn't at the same physical level as Uriel. Seal is able to contend with Uriel through sheer technique and skill alone. For him to be this strong, could it be that he has reached peak Grandmaster? Raziel thought while looking at the fight more closely than before. Seal then back away from the sword clashes, causing Uriel to stand still in caution. What is he doing now? And besides that, why isn't he fighting like he used to? Uriel thought, fighting the changed in way that he fought was too different than 2 years ago. Uriel, as a master swordsman, was able to understand the gap between his skills and Ciel's, and much like he though, Ciel isn't even going all out, like he was waiting for something to happen, or something else together. Quote. I have seen enough. I will now go to an offensive. With that declaration, Uriel redid himself for another round of attack, and even more so when Ciel's stance changed into that of an offensive one. Here I go. Ciel then rushed towards Uriel and sent a series of slashes and thrust towards Uriel, who parried them as fast as possible, but as he was parrying them, Ciel's pace began to change. His pace. His changing his pace in the middle of the fight. Right before his attacks. No. Even before the attack is launched his pace is completely out of sync in the end result. Single quote. Uriel thought, the attacks that Ciel was launching was out of sync, with his attacks either being very slow, but become extremely fast, or it is extremely fast, then became extremely slow, with it even stopping in a few instances. His movements didn't have a pattern or rhyme or reason to it, with it just changing at Ciel's will. Because of that, Uriel decided to watch for his attacks, and when he saw Ciel was about to strike, he put his all into weaving through it and then attacked Ciel to the side to end the fight. Clang. Asterisk. But, Ciel was able to block it completely once more, and they again entered into a stalemate. Hey Ciel. Quote. What is it? Quote. You still haven't shown what you can do, you're still holding back. To this Ciel could only smile, a smile that only Uriel, who was close enough, was able to see. Are you insulted in that? Hearing Ciel's words, Uriel could only smile at that and replied. I see, you're still on about that taunting lessons of ours. Realizing what Ciel was doing, Uriel could only come to that conclusion. It is true, it is very insulting to fight a warrior equally, to then realize he wasn't even going all out, it is both insulting and. Uriel then put his strength into his sword to then broke the stalemate causing Ciel's arm to shot out to the side, breaking his form and any defense he could do, very rewarding when he is put into a corner. With that, he refined his aura to his sword and then downward slash at him, to end the fight. To this, the others could only think that this was the end of the duel, but unexpectedly, Ciel was still in it as well. In a display of skill, he was able to spin his body to move to the side and stand up and thrust towards Uriel, who released his wings to defend against the attacks, which sent him flying because of the force delivered through the sword. I didn't expect him to learn something like that. But more importantly, there isn't a movement technique like that in the library. So how? Uriel thought. Same to the Archangels who has entered the library countless times and has searched through the library and found that there isn't a movement technique like that registered in Heaven Library. He created his own technique. No, in fact, now that I think about it, his attacks are completely random, but they still fall under Holy Sword style, but that last one isn't a part of any movement technique in the library. There is a large percentage that he is hiding his true style that he might have created for himself, Raziel thought while looking at Ciel. Ciel, I want to fight at full power, with also showing all of your power as well. Uriel said while standing up, fully recovering from the blow that he has just suffered from his attack. To this Ciel could only swing his sword in a way that attracted the audience to him. His sword swings is a contradictory, that exist in two extreme opposite of each other. His movements is both smooth, like that of a clam water current, and the other was a rapid spinning of movements to the point of zigzagging each other and then a single straight line. I will go all out. I respect your pride, Uriel. For that, I will beat you now. With that, Ciel then rushed towards Uriel and performed a horizontal slash towards Uriel, who only countered with a vertical slash towards Ciel. To this Ciel unlocked the swords and then continued to slash towards Uriel, who again countered. But because of the seriousness of Ciel, Uriel also gone all out as well in terms of strength and technique. Because of that, the two wasn't looking out to the audience, for their first clash already broke the entire training area to bits because of their strength, causing everyone to fly off to continue to watch the battle. Ciel then jumped backwards, causing Uriel to move forward to put pressure on him. which Seal created an aura barrier in his feet to rush Uriel, with that the two once again attacked each other. Seeing this, the others could only see a clash coming, but unlike the others though, the two didn't clash, for Ciel's wooden sword slipped past Uriel's own wooden sword and then struck him to his core, and with that he was sent flying towards the first layer of heaven, all battered up and bloodied up. Uriel, you gotten stronger and better in swordsmanship. But the essence of swordsmanship is to end the battle as quickly and efficiently as possible, Ciel commented while looking at the bloodied body of the Archangel. The others, be it Angel, Exorcist or Archangel, was surprised by the blow that Uriel just suffered through, causing many angels to surround Uriel to heal them. But the majority of them only stayed where they were, and looked at Ciel, who was currently looking at his wooden sword in his hand. So this is your limit. I sorry for ending your existence. They all could only looked at Ciel weirdly at this moment. For the moment, they thought that Ciel was talking to the wooden sword like it was a living person. But then, the wooden sword started to disappear into particles. There wasn't any magic involved in the process, for the wooden sword was only disintegrating from existence in an atomic level. The reason was unknown, or rather how it was achieved was unknown, with the reason being very well known by many of the war veterans. The wooden sword couldn't match his existence level. They thought it was a common occurrence in the battlefield of old, with there being many instances where many warriors would become far too powerful, or in much rarer occurrence, far too skilled for their weapon to fully handle it. With wooden sword fully gone, he looked upward towards the archangels, then to Michael and then to Gabriel, his mother. Mom, can we talk? Hearing Ciel's hesitate voice, Gabriel could only think of this was something that is far too important for Ciel, causing her to look serious and nod at her son. Very well. Let's do it in your room. With that the duo of mother and son then left the area to be cleaned by the angels, with Uriel healing himself and continued to train.